In this tutorial for beginners, we are going to look at how we can make this lower third using Adobe After Effects. Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here or haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Now let's get started. First, you open up your Adobe After Effects. This is mine. You see here, our current workspace is default. We have this standard workspace over here. If you want to go to workspaces, you just click on Window, Workspace, and you have all those available workspace over here. The first thing we need to do here is to create a new composition. You can see here, new composition. Click on it and you will get this composition settings. There are a few other ways through which we can access this. Go to composition menu, click on this new composition, and we have this shortcut key over here, Ctrl+N. And I get the same composition settings that I got earlier. In here, you can see so many settings, and there are a few sub options: basic, advanced, and 3D renderer. In this tutorial, we need this basic only. First, we need to give a composition name. Here I give my combo 1, and we have the preset over here. Currently, my preset is custom. Over here, you can see a little arrow. You click on it, and you can see all those available presets. You can select any of these according to your requirements. Here you have width and height. It's nothing but the resolution of your video. Is now 1920 by 1080 pixels. Next is the frame rate. Mine is 30. If you want a different frame rate, you can write here. Now I write 27.97. Or you can click this arrow to see all available frame rates. If you click anyone here, a new frame rate will be inserted for you. Next is start time code. Right now it is 0, and here I leave it as it is. Next is duration. Here it is 5 seconds, and it's what I input there. Next is background color. Here you see a trace of black. If you want a different color, then you can click on it, and from this box you can select any color. But I prefer black for this project. After you finished with all those settings, you can click OK. Now you created your composition. You can see here my combo because it's the name I gave to my composition. Now let's create a new folder. So I right click over here and I select this new folder. Now I get this folder named Untitled. Then I select it and right click on it and I select this rename. My new name is Logos. Okay. Now I'm going to import some images. So I right click over here on the projects panel and I select this import and then I click on this file. Now I get this box from where I select this PNG image and I click on this input. Now you see my PNG image is here. Now I drag it into my folder named Logos. Now it's in my folder named Logos. You can see here. I rename this PNG image into YTL, by which I mean YouTube logo. Then I drag it onto my composition panel and it's here. You see my logo is kind of toward this corner. So I want to align this. For that, I go to this preview and effects panel and I click on this align. Here you see align layers to composition is our present choice. And over here, there are a few align options. I click on the second one from left to get my image horizontally centralized. And then I click on the second from the right to get it to the vertical center. Now my PNG image is exactly at the center of this composition. Now let me resize it. You can see some grips over here. You hold any of these grips with your left mouse button, but it should be ensured that your selection tool is active. If it is the active one, you can see this icon blue color. And if it is not, you can either click on here to activate it or you press V key on your keyboard. Now let me drag it into my desired space. But when you drag like this, it will not keep its aspect ratio. So you must hold down your shift key in order to maintain the aspect ratio. I think this size is good for me. If you think why it is white over here, though we chose black as our background color in the composition settings, it's because that we activated transparency by clicking on this toggle transparency grid button. So from here, you can toggle between the color you chose and the transparency. So now let's step into the actual process. You see, this is the animation that we want to create. and it's just a scaling up and down of the image controlled by some keyframes. You see our image is over here. So let's just look into how we can create this animation. For that, I come over here, the left corner of my timeline panel. So over here, we have everything to tell everything according to your requirements. This is our PNG image. Over here, you see a small little soul triangle that looks like a play button. And when I click on that, I get this transform. Again, with a small soil triangle to its left. This time I click on this triangle and I get all these controls. Anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. The shortcuts to these controls are simply the first alphabet of their names, like F for anchor point, P for position, S for scale, R for rotation, except for opacity, where the shortcut is T. As I said before, we only need the scale to create this effect. By clicking on here, I turned everything off. And then I press the S key on my keyboard to bring scale back. You see, this is our playhead. We can drag it to and fro across our timeline. And this is the maximum size of this image that we need in our animation. So let's first fix a time duration for this image to grow from 0 size to this size. For that, I move the playhead 20 frames to right from the start. So the duration of this first part of this animation is 20 time frames. So this is it. Next, we should bind this image size with this particular time frame. How can it be done? It can be done by providing keyframes. Okay, let's back. So we need a keyframe at this point. For that, I come over here over this stopwatch icon because this icon is designated for putting keyframes. If you click on this icon, it will put a keyframe on where your playhead on the timeline is. So I clicked over here and I get a keyframe here. Now I drag this playhead back to the start point, and again I need a keyframe here too. But this time I don't click here because any following click on the stopwatch icon after the first one will delete all the keyframes that set under that particular control. So I come over here and click on this icon to put my second keyframe, and I get that here. So now you look here, we have two keyframes over here. For this keyframe, we already have a value and that corresponds to this full grown size of this icon over here. But for this keyframe, we have to put a value because when this playhead reaches at this point, the size of this icon should be 0. So this must be 0. Okay, let's give it a play and watch what's going to happen. Now, let's add a stroke to this. For that, select this PyTL, then right click on it, and you get this layer styles. And in this box, you see stroke over here, or you select this, then go to layer menu, and here you have layer styles. And from here too, you can access this stroke. So I click on stroke. Now we have stroke over here, and I click on this little triangle, and you see here we have so many controls. We have this color, size, opacity, position, etc. First, we need to change the color. Now it's red and we change it to white. Click on this OK. Next, we're going to change the size. So I change this from 3 to 10. But we can't see anything here because of this transparency. So let's switch to black screen. Now we have our stroke here. Now we once again click over here to return all those controls back. Switch to transparency again. Now let's make this animation a bit more smooth. For that, I select both keyframes and I right click on that and I click on this keyframe assistant. Then I click on Easy Ease. If you want, you can do some further modifications to the motion. With these two keyframes under selection, you click on this graph and you get this parabola. You click over here at this terminal point and you get this yellow handle. Click and hold this left dot and drag it to right. Then on this right one and drag left. I think this is enough and it's just a personal preference. Now again click on this graph to turn it off. Let's hit our spacebar to give it a play and see how is it now. Okay, now we're going to add our text. For that, I click on this T icon, T for text, and then I click on here. I write subscribe and the text is in white. If you want a color change, you can do it from effects and preset panel. As of now, I don't want any color change here, but I want to reposition it. For that, I click on this selection tool. Then I drag it to where I want. Okay. Now, I want another word just below this. I write now here. It's also in white. But here I want a different color. So type Control A to select all. I mean the text. Then I come over here and I click on this color box. From over here, I select black. Then I click this OK. So subscribe is in white color and now is in black color. Here you see when we add new items, the newer ones comes above and the older ones goes below. That's the default stocking method. But we want this YTL on the top. So let's just drag out the top position. Okay. The next step, we're going to create a space layers. For that, we do right click over here and we get this new, and here we can see this shape layer. Click on it, create a new shape layer, and it's here. But this is only the layer, not the shape. So we have to come to this tool. This is the rectangle tool. You click and hold it and you get this pop-up from where you select rounded rectangle tool. Since this window is too small to see things clearly, I just scroll my mouse button to make it a bit larger and then I draw my shape like this. Okay, it's here. This shape and shape layer are for the subscribe and we want another one for this now as shown in the animation. So let's come back to this time panel and again do a right click from new. Once again select this shape layer and you see my second shape layer has come over here. So let's just bring this rounded rectangle tool to draw another shape just below the first one. And I draw my next shape like this. Right now on the screen, we have our two shapes. Next, we need to bring the text on the top of the shapes. For that, we have to change the stack out of the layers. First, we drag this YTL layer, YouTube logo layer to the top because it is the layer that should be topmost. I drag shape layer 1 to below text layer subscribe and shape layer 2 to beneath text layer new. But you see here, the roundness of this rounded rectangle is not very pretty. So let's increase some roundness. You know this rounded rectangle is in shape layer 1. So go to shape layer 1. Click on this little triangle to expand it. And we get this contents and transform. Click on contents to expand it. And we see this rectangle 1. Again, click here to expand. Now we got this rectangle path. And below it, we have this roundness. Now its value is 20. Let's increase it to 50. Let's look here. But since this background is white, we can't discern much. So we switch to black screen. Now we have enough roundness to this rectangle and it looks pretty. Here we have the rectangle which should have to be modified the same way we did before. Since this rectangle is on shape layer 2, we go to shape layer 2, click on this little triangle and it displays the contents and transform. Click on contents, click on rectangle, then on rectangular path and change the roundness. You see here, both of the rounded rectangles have enough roundness to it. I'm sorry that I did a mistake here. I forgot to change the color of this text. This white text is on the white background, so it's not very visible. So we have to change that color now. To change the white color of this text, subscribe, I select that text and I come over here, the effects and presets panel, and I click on this character over here. And from here, I get all those controls pertaining to text. This is the font type, this is the font style, this is its color, this is the size, and everything. Now we select the subscribe and we hit this color box, and from here we change to black and click OK. Now it's OK. Next, let's add a stroke to this rectangle. For that, we go to timeline panel. Over here, you have so many controls. And if you want to isolate your desired item, you just click on this solo button and it will turn off every other thing for you. Since I'm going to work on this shape, I come over here and I solo the shape layer 1. What I want to do now is to give a stroke to my rectangle. For that, I select the shape layer 1, then I do a right click and then go to layer states, and from here I select the stroke. Now you get so many items here. From over here, you click on the stroke. Here we have the stroke color and it's red and it's what we want now. Next is size. It's 3. Let me increase to 6. Okay, that's all with that. Now click on this little triangle to return everything. Okay, now it's time to turn on the solo function so that we have to bring everything back. Next, we should apply the same stroke to the lower rectangle. For that, we go to shape layer 2 and make it solo. Click on shape layer to select it, but this time I take a different route. Now we go to layer states and stroke. Okay, look here. Among other controls over here, you can see stroke. So click on it. Right now the stroke color is red and it's okay. And the stroke width is 3. Let me change to 6. Press enter. Okay. This solve function is no longer required. Let's just turn it off now. Okay. So we finished our first phase of animation. You see this portion of our time panel is crowded with a lot of controls that we don't need anymore. So it's better to send them back for more clarity. As we did before, we can just click on this little triangle icons to send them back. We also have a shortcut key to do the same. And it's U key. When you hit U key, it will send all of this back at one go. But you see over here, a different thing happened. The scale was not here earlier. When you hit the U key, all those controls that were visible here, while when back, the scale came forth. It's because the U key is designated for handling controls that are keyframed. You hit the U key once again, you see the scale goes. And when you again hit the U key, the scale comes back. Because scale is the only keyframed function here right now. Now I am in my timeline and I hit U key to bring all those keyframed controls out. But we have only one of that kind here, and that's the scale. I press this toggle transparency button to bring the transparency, and see here. You see in our time panel, the keyframes that we put under scale are visible here. Now I click and hold the playhead, drag to left, and press down the shift key to get it glued to the first keyframe. Next, we have to move both of these round rectangles to the left of the YouTube logo, because in the animation it should be like both of these rectangles pop up from inside of the YouTube logo. Now we are going to position these rounded rectangles to the left of the YouTube logo. So I go to these controls, I click on shape layer 1 to select it, and then holding down the control key, I click on shape layer 2 to select that too. Now you see both of our shape layers are under selection. Next, we need positional controls under these shape layers. For that, just type P on your keyboard and we get these controls for position over here. Now type Ctrl R to bring rulers, or go to view menu and show rulers. We need a guide now. For that, click and hold here and drag it to the center of the YouTube logo. It's the time to select the both rectangles, move them to the other side of the YouTube logo. While you move, you hold down the shift key to maintain the horizontality. Now let's secure the position of these rectangles by providing keyframes. And I click on the stopwatch icons to provide them. Now I drag the playhead 2 frames to right to set the new position of the rectangles. Then I select both round rectangles, move them to right to place them below the text or where they were before. Then click on the small diamond-like icons to put keyframes. Now hit the home key of your keyboard to send the playhead to the start of the timeline to see what's going to happen on the screen. You see the shapes go to the other side while the text remains stagnant, but we don't want text to behave this way, but we want text to follow the shapes. Here there's a control that will help us to achieve this, and that's the parent control. Now I drag this playhead to right out of all keyframes range before I link text with the shape layers. Now I go to the text layer named now, then to the parent control, and I link it with the text layer 2 as you see here. You see a small box just right to this parent control, and you can see shape layer in there. If you want further clarification, then you can click on this little arrow over here. Then in the box you got, you will find your shape layer 2 is active. Similarly, you go to the text layer for subscribe and link it with the shape layer 1. So let's give it a play to see how much we have progressed so far and whatever remains undone. The animation should look like the text and the shapes kind of come out from the inside of the logo. For that to be realized, it should be such that when the text and the shape layers go to the other side of the YouTube logo, they should not be visible to people. So we have to do something to hide the text and shapes when they get to the left side of the animation. First thing we need to do here is to bring these 4 layers into a single bunch. For that, first we select all these 4 layers and then we right click, and from here we select Recompose. Then you get these settings. You have to give a name here. I give pop-up. Also select this move all attributes to the new composition and then click OK. Now we are going to draw a mask on this pop-up. So first select pop-up, then go to layer, mask, new mask. Our mask has come. Let's scroll out a bit to see it. Then drag it to right up to the center grid. If you want, you can resize it. Okay, we are finished with that part. Now we have finished the first part of our animation where objects pop out of the logo, and now we need to add the second part where the objects that popped out earlier return to where they came from. We can easily do it by making a mirror copy of all the keyframes that you have already put in this animation and pasting it toward the end of the time period of the animation. Let's now go through the process. Go to the controls. In time panel, we have 2 objects here. The first one is YTL and then a recompose named pop-up. Hit the U key of your keyboard and you see scale has come because it's keyframes, and you can see the keyframes over here on the timeline. To culminate this, we are just going to use what you have learned in this tutorial once again. Drag the playhead to the right and keep it at the end of your time period. Then click on the first keyframe, hit Ctrl C on your keyboard to select it, and then Ctrl V to paste it on where your playhead on the timeline is. Now you move the playhead 20 frames to right. Because it is the time gap between the first and second keyframe at the start of the animation. Copy the second keyframe from the left and paste it on where your playhead is right now. So that portion is over. The next item we need to deal with is this precompose named pop-up. Hit U to send scale back. You need to either right click on it or click on this little icon and then select this pop-up, and then you will get to see all of its components. Once again, hit U key to bring forth all keyframed controls. Now drag the playhead to the right, keep it at a position very similar to that of the first keyframe from the left, then copy the first pair of keyframes from the left and then paste it on where your playhead on the timeline is. Move the playhead 2 time frames to left because it was a time gap put in between the 2 keyframes at the start. Now copy the second set of keyframes from the start and paste them on your timeline where your playhead is right now. So the right side of this animation is almost completed. Let's start to make this left leg that contains the text, please. And all the steps involved are exactly the same as those we discussed before. So in this session, I'm just going to mention the different steps without explaining the details. Choose text tool or hit T on your keyboard and write please. Now let's bring a horizontal grid to the center as it would help us with the positioning of text and the rectangle. Let's position the text. Create a shape layer and drag it to the lowest position of the stack and make the shape layer current, and then take the round rectangle tool and draw a rectangle. Since in the animation the color of the text please is white, so change it into white. But the problem now is that both the text and the rectangle underlay are in white. So go to shape layer 1, click on rectangle 1, and then on fill, then fill color and change it to black and click OK. And now to give a stroke, click on stroke, then the stroke color, the select red, click OK, then stroke width. Now it's 3, increase to 6, press enter. Now increase the roundness of the rectangle so that it would better match with others. If you don't remember the steps, go back and learn once again. Now click on this YTL and then hit U key of your keyboard to get the scale control and corresponding keyframes revealed. Drag the playhead to left to get it glued with the keyframe. Now select shape layer 1, hit P key of your keyboard to bring position control out. Move the playhead 2 time frames to right and put a keyframe. Move the playhead 2 time frames to left, wherever it was before, then put a keyframe. Then reposition the rectangle to the right of the center line because this is the position of the rectangle with respect to this keyframe. Now shift the playhead to the right keyframe in order to bring the rectangle to the left of the YouTube logo. Turn on the text layer using solo function and then link text with shape layer 1 using parent function. Select shape layer 1 and hit U key of your keyboard to send all controls back. Select the text layer and the shape layer and convert them into a single bunch using precompose function. PLS is the name that I give to the new precompose. Click on the precompose PLS and then click on rectangle tool and then draw a rectangle. If you draw a rectangle this way, it will be a mask. So we put a mask, then double click PLS to reveal its components and then hit U key of your keyboard to bring the positional control out. Now we can see the keyframes. Put a mirror copy of the keyframes to the other end as we did before, like this. Now the animation is over. Let's take out the solo function and give it a play. You can add many improvisations to this simple animation like easy ease, speed graph, etc. When you practice, take care to add those beautiful modifications wherever possible. Now it's time to export our animation. For that, first you go to File menu, Export, then click on Add to Render Queue. On the left side of Render Queue panel, you will find two settings, render settings and output module. As a beginner, you can leave best settings, just left to render settings as it is. But in the next one, lossless, you need to make some changes because in this case, you have to preserve the transparency. In this output module settings, most importantly, you need to change two things. The first one is format. Here, the default shall be AVI. You need to change it into QuickTime. Next, just below video output, you see the channels and just left to it in a box, you can see RGB. You need to change it into RGB plus alpha. This is to preserve the transparency of your clip. Next, click here, select a location, give a name and click on the save. Now your clip is all set to be rendered. So let's just click on this render and it's going to be rendered. It's time in this video. Before that, I have a request to you. If you're new here, haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. And thanks a lot for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'll meet you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.